Today I begin my first step towards my journey. A journey of traveling to various places across India and meeting just as many people working in the domain of betterment of the world. My focus will be travel, but I shall attempt to make a difference through my travel. Today I am meeting one such individual, Vijay, the founder of Bipolar India. I met Vijay through my psychiatrist. For those of you who don't know what bipolar disorder is, it was earlier known as manic depression. It is a psychiatric illness where a person goes through depression and mania or hypomania from time to time. Depression can be very severe to the extremes of self-harm, while mania can be to the extreme of delusions. Anyway, this video isn't about bipolar disorder. It's about the support group that works towards helping many suffering from it. So let's go across Mumbai and meet Vijay. By the way, there are chapters labeled down so you can view the video more efficiently.
भाई वो टूट गया है पीछे।
टायर के अंदर जा रहा है।
अच्छा, I don't even have a clip or something. I didn't realize that it's broken. You know, whenever I see a cop, my anxiety always just pops up. I don't know why, but it does. I don't know if that's a bad thing or it's a good thing. Matlab, good thing in the sense that maybe everybody's anxiety pops up because, well, they're cops and they're supposed to have that effect. And on the other hand, I'm like, maybe it's just me because the anxiety is like a little extra when at that space. I start getting worried he's gonna come, he's gonna do something, even though I'm doing nothing wrong. Now that's a big boy car. It's a Padadi. Yeah, I know it's Ferrari. Whatever. Who cares? It's a nice car, I don't deny it, but it's a car, it's not a bike. I'm riding on a highway kind of road since after years, so I'm a little scared, honestly speaking, because I kind of had lost all my confidence because of my depression or anxiety or whatever, and now these small trips are not just for collecting content. It's mainly because I want to get used to riding again on the highway, on bigger roads, among more traffic. Because abhi tak, till now, basically what I've been riding is just within the South Bombay. So, there's not a lot of experience to gain out there. Now that I'm reaching close, my anxiety is getting higher and higher about this. It's like now I'm worried if I carry the tripod or the mics and other camera equipment. Well, there's not much camera equipment, but there was a battery and everything, GoPro batteries and things like that. I have a very certain memory of me putting all of that in my bag, packing it up and putting it there, but yet the worry and the anxiety and the doubt and everything, that is still there, and it's very freaking weird. Knowing that you've done something and yet wondering whether you did it.
Sit on the sofa and remove your hair.
It's okay?
Yeah.
Hello.
Absolutely. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Okay, so Vijay, we'll start with the basics.
Yeah.
What is Bipolar India? What are you doing on this platform?
Yeah. So Bipolar India is essentially a peer support community, which is led by peers and meant to support peers.
Right.
Right. That is the core of what it is about.
Can you tell me what is your vision when it comes to Bipolar India? How did it begin?
See, it was my own lived experience and struggles facing bipolar disorder, which was, I would say, the inspiration behind reaching out, starting something to reach out to the community. All right. Yeah. So, by the way, I live with bipolar disorder for more than 45 years now. Back in 2012, I had taken to blogging.
Okay.
Yeah. And one of my blog posts was on my recovery from bipolar disorder.
Okay.
It evoked a lot of interest, feedback from community because I was very active on social media. And what it led to is one of my mentor friends, again a Facebook connect, who happens to be a life coach and a visionary, I would call him, Puneet Bhatnagar, first called me up over phone and discussed. And then he wanted to take it forward. He came over to my home and had a 2-hour conversation.
Okay.
About how did I recover. He happened to know a few people who were struggling with this condition, and he knew how difficult the journey was. And he felt that a person who was in a phase of stable recovery could offer much more to the community by sharing his personal story. So one thing led to another. And he says, Vijay, let's formalize this into something much more momentous than what you're doing right now. So the credit goes to my visionary friend. I wouldn't seek 1% of credit to kicking off by the whole movement. But then he left it to me completely.
And today it's at a beautiful place.
Right. So we are into our 10th year now, Vinay.
So when you say recovery phase, a lot of our members have a misconception or a viewpoint that recovery is not possible.
Yeah.
So I understand that cure is not possible.
Correct.
But recovery on a stage of reaching manageable levels, that is possible, right? Is that what you mean? Or?
Absolutely. So recovery is essentially a personal perspective to what you would want to be. In the journey of dealing with the condition, whether it is a physical health condition or a mental health condition, right? Besides my functionality, my logical thinking is not affected. And most importantly, I enjoy a peace of mind, which was, absolutely missing during my phases of struggle.
Definitely.
And besides that, I'm not into that fixation of being off meds or proudly proclaiming that, I'm cured of my condition. I said, how does it make a difference to me?
Right.
So the core objective is being stable, functional, enjoying life. Yeah.
A lot of our community, not Bipolar India, but bipolar individuals, have this misconception that they want to get rid of medication.
Yes.
Now, that struggle or that, pressure is not right, I think.
I'll tell you, I had an advantage there in, getting the right perspective at the time of diagnosis itself. So bipolar disorder took a long time to get diagnosed. It took 26 years for it to get diagnosed.
Okay.
So from 14 to 40, I had no treatment for any mental health condition.
Oh.
But that's the divergence between physical and mental health.
So I wanted to understand one thing. So with bipolar, usually what happens is whenever we start a new project,
Yeah.
right? One, it gives us high,
Yeah.
and second, high also leads to starting a new project, right?
Yeah.
So this kind of a project, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Was it positive outcome of bipolar, or were you in a normal state and
That's a fine question, in fact. If you ask me, I was in a fairly depressed state at that point of time.
Oh.
So Bipolar India was actually launched in May 2013. And I remember the website had been set up, and I was set up in, I think, March end or something. And then Puneet one day called me up. How long are we going to take to get this off the road? Sort of.
Right.
So he says, Vijay, if this doesn't get kicked off today, I'm going to wash my hands of this. You won't believe this. I sat till 2:30, 3 in the morning and launched Bipolar India.
the fact that step in your life
Yeah.
took you away from the depression inertia is a very big thing. Okay, so now I want to understand, when an individual joins Bipolar India, right? What kind of support are we talking about here?
Yeah. So when we did begin Bipolar India way back in 2013, it was primarily only a portal to create awareness. So initially it was more about me sharing experiences, some information about bipolar disorder and things like that. But we wanted it to be a more interactive community. That happened a couple of years down the line when conversations happened in the community.
Right.
And in 2016, we started our offline peer support meets in Mumbai. And that was a pivotal point in our journey. Because what is, happens in the virtual world, and when you have a, group of people meeting in person, sharing, no holds barred kind of sharing happens, that opening up, it is an amazing experience. So we started in a very, very small way, just 2 or 3 people meeting me in a meet. So it became a monthly sort of a meet structure right from there up to now. Only the pause was during the pandemic when we went to the virtual mode.
Right.
So apart from the peer support meets that we do, we have regional groups for the metro cities such as Mumbai, Delhi, Bengaluru, Chennai, Hyderabad. So real-time support is offered to the community in these groups as well.
Right.
So it could be things as simple as information about professionals to access, mental health professionals, such as a recommendation for a psychiatrist in a particular locality, or recommendation for a therapist, or it could be just sharing of anguish and wanting to, asking for solutions in the group. When advice or suggestions or tips come in from people from lived experience, there is a strong connect, because the person starts, the whole exchanges, like the person talking to me has already been through what I have been through.
Yes.
So that barrier of you don't know what I'm going through is knocked off completely.
True.
Now all this is happening in the background, right? What happens during a real crisis time? I think this is where a community becomes really relevant, an organization like us.
Okay.
So, for instance, we get distress, messages of people wanting to end their lives. Trigger warning here, of course, right? But this is a real aspect of people struggling with mental health conditions.
Definitely.
And fortunately, people do express such thoughts in the community. So this is the level of trust that the community sort of builds up.
Yes.
And we have actively intervened in 4 such cases, and possibly we have played a key role in, changing the person's mind at that crucial time.
Right. So this is something I would like to tell you guys, that a support group is not just for a conversation. It also helps you out in the dire positions. So if anybody around you is thinking about joining any support group, not just Bipolar India, right? So you should support them in their decision, because that might actually help them to a large degree. So keep in mind.
Now, you know that with a condition, severe conditions like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, we have some members of schizophrenia as well in our community. So, we have within our community family caregivers also, which is, I think, an integral part of the mental health support system.
Definitely.
We cannot, keep people in silos and say, look, it is just you alone, and exclude the people who are immediately supporting that person, right?
Okay.
So, how do we support the caregivers? Of course, again, we have a separate dedicated community for them as well, where the tips and insights are shared. So, I'll give you just one incident. We got a distress call from a person who was, who was sharing a room with one of our members.
Okay.
Somehow he landed up with my number. I don't know how he got in touch with me. All this happened at midnight. Yeah, I got a phone call. The person was in full-blown mania. I could gauge from the symptoms that were narrated to me. We arranged for their family to come from out of town because, to facilitate hospitalization, somebody has to authorize it. It has to be by an immediate family member. We even arranged for an ambulance in that emergency situation. Made arrangements at a hospital in Mumbai, Masina, for the person to be taken to. Right, almost the entire expenses, and which went beyond 1 lakh, were crowd-funded by our community.
Oh, that is brilliant. So with Bipolar India, are we looking at only bipolar members, bipolar disorder members, or as you said, schizophrenia is also there? So
in the first 1 or 2 years, I would say it was exclusively devoted to bipolar disorder, right? As I said, when we started meeting in person, we realized that persons with borderline personality disorder, persons with major depressive disorder, persons with even OCD, and a couple of people with schizophrenia started joining our meets. And then we said, why are we creating compartments within the spectrum of mental health? There is overlap of struggles. Of course, the diagnosis, symptoms, red flags, there is a variance across these illnesses and conditions. But I think we realized that we cannot compartmentalize this further. Let's be more inclusive in our approach.
Right. So it is called Bipolar India because the foundation was in bipolar.
Right.
But today we are looking at all the mental health issues possible.
Absolutely, yes.
Speaking of that, I think you have a new community which is Let's Walk Together, right?
Yeah.
So that is a new venture that you've just begun.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
The second aspect of our struggle, broad aspect I would say, is a source of livelihood.
Right.
And one would agree that with lack of meaningful social support in a country like India, where we don't have public support for a person living with disability, whether it is physical or mental.
Yes.
Right? So whatever is there is negligible, does not really sustain a family. Right? So what we decided is, as a community, delve into an area which would make a meaningful difference in a person's life.
Right.
And we firmly believe when we talk about recovery is not only recovery in terms of symptomatic relief. So I have strongly believed that, first of all, being productively occupied has manifold benefits. It does support recovery also.
Definitely, because positive mental health leads to positive life, but positive life also leads to positive mental health.
And a person is moving from exclusion to inclusion in society, right? That's another aspect of it.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, which is actually a right, fundamental right, but it's not in practical terms. We don't see that being happening around us. And another nuance of the psychological aspect is the sense of self-worth a person gets.
Being dependent becomes self-image becomes a
self-image. So that there is a rub-off there also. And the most important aspect which we cannot ignore is the economic necessity.
Right.
I mean, we can talk about these abstract benefits, but the core benefit is there are families who are strapped for money, right?
Yes.
Let's understand that. Treating bipolar disorder, living with that condition for decades, that itself needs a lot of money. So firstly, the family is putting in money to support that person in terms of that illness, right? Yeah, right, leading that person to recovery.
Right.
So any source of income coming doesn't have to be a substantial one also, at least relieves that burden of the family.
When you say you're trying to help them with this particular aspect of their life, what kind of individual expect them?
Yeah. So that is why we launched letswalktogether.org,
Okay.
which is an initiative, parallel initiative, focused on livelihoods for persons with mental health conditions. Again, it is not limited to our community. So we have some 34 or 35 CVs on board of people aspiring for jobs, right? And the kind of qualifications that you see on the, across the board, they are pretty impressive. Yeah, most of them are post-grads. So you can imagine the range of talent available and searching for appropriate placements. Essentially, it's a bridge between people seeking such placements and organizations which are inclusive in nature, because I think that will be a massive, massive sort of push for, the whole cause of, empowering our people. On Let's Walk Together, we are not only looking at conventional jobs.
Okay.
Let's understand also people with mental health conditions might not always fit into the conventional 9 to 5 kind of roles.
Obviously.
So it could be a work from home freelance kind of an assignment. It could be project-based consulting. It could be a varied sort of involvement, but which again generates an income for the person.
Right.
Another vertical, the phenomenal skills our community has in terms of artworks, writing. So we have authors in our community. So we have an e-marketplace also. Okay. So it is still early days, let me be honest. And here I must mention fine support that we have received by stalwarts from the mental health domain and organizations. So on the advisory board of Let's Walk Together, we have the who's who of India in the form of Amrit Bakshiji of Schizophrenia Awareness Association, Dr. Soumitra Pathare, Director at Center for Mental Health Law and Policy, Pune. We have Preeti Sridhar, who is CEO of Mariwala Health Initiative.
Oh.
Yeah. Tasneem Raja, who has been in this field of supporting mental health through charitable trusts. She was associated with Tata Trust, heading their mental health vertical. So I won't go into the entire gamut of supporters. And organizations like, again, Center for Mental Health Law and Policy, Mariwala Health, Manorati from Delhi supporting us. Right. So it's again, our vision is not to restrict it to as an initiative of Bipolar India. I think the cause is far, far too big for it to be led by an individual or even a coterie of individuals.
So now, when it comes to finding a livelihood, right?
Yeah.
What kind of barriers are there? Like, I understand that with respect to mental health,
Yeah.
right? Inherently, there are some challenges which come.
Yeah.
But from a societal perspective,
Yeah.
what kind of discrimination are we looking at which comes up, which is something that I think everybody should know about?
I think, firstly, the lack of awareness. We, as human beings, tend to be afraid of the unknown, right? So there are so many variables around a person living with a severe mental health diagnosis, such as bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or other such conditions. So if I were a HR head, so the first would be the doubts that would come across.
Right.
Yeah, would that person sort of fulfill the role, the challenging role that I am going to assign to that person, given this condition? So the diagnosis overwhelms the capabilities of the person.
Right.
This is where discrimination takes its roots,
Mm-hmm.
And our core thrust is, at Let's Walk Together, is all that our people demand is reasonable accommodation at workplace. And to showcase some examples, our core team at the initiative is all drawn from the community.
Acha.
And some of the names are Dr. Tripti Mishra, who is a PhD and an educationist and a career counselor, We have Asha Pillai, who was until recently the CFO at Shell.
Oh,
All right. Yeah, and now assigned a global role. Yeah. Ruchi Bhatia, who is among the top 40 of HR, and so on and so forth.
so I want to understand one thing, that is, what is the, like, what is your dream when it comes to this?
Firstly, I would like to share this, and very few people are aware about it, that very recently we have been registered as a charitable trust.
Okay.
So the apex body would be Mental Health Support Foundation. We want to extend our support to anybody with living with a mental health condition, and a core part of that is also families. So we believe a peer support network does not have to be limited to a metro city, to even the A class and B class towns of India. It needs to be percolated to all corners of the country. We would be looking to collaborate with local organizations to give it the cultural context and the ability to make inroads at a. That's what we would be looking as a roadmap to take us forward in that vertical of
Right.
peer support.
So if anybody has not exactly an NGO or
Yeah.
support system,
Yeah.
right? A support group which is working in this domain, can
Right.
they contact you and
Certainly,
become
certainly.
a part of this journey as well?
So, in fact, we already started conversations in that direction. Yeah. Diving more seriously into the livelihoods initiative is another objective. That model includes mentoring for our applicants. Yeah. Okay. I think that's the key part. Handholding is necessary, especially in the first few months of placements. We, in the future, we also aim to conduct training programs in corporate offices that would include awareness and, more importantly, sensitization. The third important objective, which we already have initiated efforts on, is having a center in Mumbai. In very broad terms, it would be a center that would nurture people in a holistic way. So we would go beyond the pure biomedical model to offer people a center where they can come to feel sort of connected,
Right.
where it wouldn't be a very threatening atmosphere, irrespective of the degree of challenge a person feels. It would be like a second home for the first person. Core thrust would be in a multidisciplinary, holistic approach to healing.
Nice.
Right? Adopting yoga, adopting nutrition, exercise, art therapy. So all these modalities come in to sort of support the person, right? And I'm not trying to invalidate the importance of clinical intervention, which would also, of course, be there.
So if anybody from our viewers wishes to support this foundation of yours,
Yeah.
is there a way they can do this, monetary or otherwise?
Of course, funding matters a lot. Up to now, we have not sought funding from any external entity.
Okay.
Yeah. So all these 10 years, we have run the organization without any external funding.
Now we are going to a much larger
And then
scale.
this can also give an idea about how much we can do if we are funded well enough,
Definitely.
right? Because at the end of the day, not everything can be done without funding. So apart from funding, how you could contribute is also by volunteering. So for instance, if you are you're a student of psychology in your second last year or final year, you could support the organization by offering volunteers support to our community, for instance. Support can come in even in form of administration support, people offering us support for graphic designing on a volunteering base. It can be in multiple ways, So it's a question of just intention translating to,
So basically, no matter what skill
Something
set
com-
you want to offer,
Yeah.
just take your skill set, tell us that you want to help us out, and
Right.
we'll find a way.
Absolutely. I must not forget the people who have supported us in a stellar way right from the onset of the organization. I would say from 2016 onwards also, we had our panelists who sort of joined the organization to support us in Dr. Milan Balkrishnan, a psychiatrist at Masina Hospital and Bombay Hospital, Havobi Bhagwagar, a renowned psychotherapist, and Zinat Jahan, who is also a psychotherapist and a life coach. Down the years, then we were also supported by Shrikant Shirsagar, who is a noted yoga trainer, and Shilpa Mittal, who is a merit ranker nutritionist.
Oh,
So they have been conducting sessions for us on our behalf. The panelists have been there right through to support us. And now we have a fine board of trustees who have also really committed to the cause. So they help us in our collective decision making and defining our vision ahead.
that is really nice. So I guess this is where we will sign off for the interview.
Yeah.
It was very nice meeting you, and very nice to know that people are working towards things that really make a difference in people's life with, you know, mental health issues. So anyways, so viewers, these are the kind of interviews that I'll be bringing to you, and we will be talking about more NGOs later on and more motor vlogs as well. So stay tuned, we'll be back.